Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're decoding something pretty fascinating, a document that reads way less like a standard job posting and honestly a lot more like a strategic survival guide for the United Nations Environment Programme's Deputy Director program position. This is a massive D1 level role based in Nairobi, and the vacancy announcement is so rigorous, so incredibly layered, that you basically need a literal roadmap to navigate it. Whether you're trying to understand what top-tier UN executive requirements actually look like, or you're just studying how the world's leading environmental authority manages its corporate risk, you are about to see exactly what goes on behind the curtain.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the stakes here are incredibly high. The UN Environment Program is the leading global environmental authority, right? But to effectively set the global environmental agenda, it absolutely depends on rigorous corporate financial stewardship. The person sitting in this deputy director role manages the financial credibility of the entire organization. We're talking about safeguarding millions in corporate interests, managing intense global risk exposure, and ensuring the complex machinery of donor relations, budgets, and workforce planning all function with total efficiency and absolute integrity.
I absolutely love this quote from the source document because it perfectly frames the fundamental tension of the job. You cannot just be a back-office numbers person here. This role requires balancing deep, highly technical financial expertise with immense diplomatic finesse. You have to be just as credible presenting complex financial statements to strict internal auditors as you are defending massive budget proposals before member states who, by the way, are rigorously scrutinizing exactly how UNEP uses its core and earmarked resources.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we're going to break this all down today. First, the D1 role decoded. Second, proving your financial mastery. Third, leadership and core values. Fourth, acing the competency interview. And finally, executing the mission.
All right, part 1, the D1 role decoded. Let's understand the arena.
The absolute floor for entry here is 15. That is 15 years of progressively responsible financial, administrative, and budget management experience. But the guide makes an absolutely crucial warning here. Evaluators are specifically trained to look for coherence. They don't just want a disjointed checklist of jobs. Jumping randomly between private sector banking and NGO fieldwork, that won't cut it without a clear strategic through-line. Every single year of those 15 must logically build your capacity to safeguard UNEP's corporate interests.
And within that 15-year block, a highly rigorous 10 years must be specifically dedicated to managing, implementing partners, and multi-stakeholder trust funds under UN financial regulations and rules. It's all about managing risk across completely different regulatory environments and ensuring local partners don't run afoul of incredibly strict UN rules, all while sustaining compliance across multiple global funding sources.
Now, here's a unique practical constraint that completely changes the calculus of the role. We're looking at a time-bound temporary appointment ending December 31st, 2026, with the possibility of extension. That means whoever takes this seat doesn't have months to slowly get up to speed. They are operating on a compressed, highly consequential timeframe and might even be subject to strict eligibility limits, like internal UN candidate restrictions or mandatory retirement age rules. You have to hit the ground running.
Moving to Section 2. Proving your financial mastery, or, as I like to call it, de-jargonifying the requirements.
So, the crucial point is that you need 5 specific years of experience leading organization-wide financial strategies in change management directly tied to program support costs, or PSC. It is not enough to just be vaguely near this process. You are fundamentally altering how internal departments get their funding, which, let's be real, always causes friction. You must show direct, senior-level ownership of change management initiatives that actually sustained institutional buy-in through financial reform.
Then you've got IPSAS. The evaluators are looking for real-world application of the International Public Sector Accounting Standards. They don't just want to know you passed a certification exam. They need to see you've actually built financial statements for a massive international entity and that you've directly contributed to IPSAS-related policies. This tests your technical accounting credibility under real, high-pressure conditions.
And all that financial data, it has to be presented to some seriously formidable audiences. Think of this as the intergovernmental gauntlet. Your data goes before unforgiving intergovernmental bodies like the ACABQ and the Fifth Committee, who will scrutinize literally every single dollar of your proposed budget. You have to prove your credibility in directly preparing policy proposals and supporting international environmental agreement negotiations. It requires translating highly technical financial content into a language that diverse member state audiences can actually understand and trust.
Section 3. Leadership and Core Values.
This is the constitutional standard.
Look, in many corporate jobs, values like gender balance or integrity might just be a quick onboarding module, right? Not here. Here, they are a literal constitutional standard under Article 101, Paragraph 3 of the UN Charter. Evaluators expect you to model these core values directly within your financial stewardship and risk management strategies. This includes a strict 50-50 gender balance commitment and absolute zero tolerance for sexual exploitation and harassment. A truly successful candidate shows how these are substantive, active dimensions of their daily leadership and decision-making.
To back up that leadership, the mandate requires 10 years of supervising multidisciplinary professional teams. You aren't just managing a room full of accountants. You are supervising teams that span data scientists, policy wonks, and field capacity builders. You have to prove you can lead diverse groups across wildly different technical specializations. That brings us to Section 4, Acing the Competency Interview, Surviving the Crucible. So, assuming your application actually gets past the initial screening in Inspira, how do you prove your experience to a panel of seasoned UN veterans? If you just sit there and say you were, quote, involved in setting environmental agendas or assisted with trust funds, they will see right through it. They are hunting for direct senior-level ownership.
And this brilliantly illustrates the trap so many applicants fall into. Vague claims of general financial oversight, they will fail instantly. You need a personal repository of specific, verified, and quantified financial outcomes for every single competency. You literally have to be able to back up your narrative with unassailable data.
To help with this, the guide lays out an exact 3-step formula to construct a successful response to their structured behavioral questioning. Step 1, present a clear situation. Step 2, detail the personal actions you took, and I mean your actions, not your team's. And Step 3, deliver a quantified outcome. It all comes down to evidence, personal attribution, and absolute candor. That is what actually wins the room.
Finally, Section 5, Executing the Mission, the Post-Appointment Reality.
Let's move to and see how this builds across the candidate's entire life cycle. You align your narrative with the mandate early on, you prove your 15 years in the screening, you demonstrate those quantified outcomes in the interview, and then, suddenly, you're in the seat. You are advising the CSD director on incredibly technical issues and overseeing highly complex budgets from day one.
Because to survive day-to-day, the ongoing competencies are just immense. You need extreme professionalism in data analysis, the ability to plan under wildly competing priorities, and the maturity to take genuine accountability for any of your work unit's shortcomings. Crucially, you can't rely on outdated systems. You must have modern enterprise resource planning proficiency and business intelligence mastery. Because your job is literally to modernize UNEP's financial data infrastructure from the inside out and effectively lead the Budget Steering Committee.
Which brings us to this quote. It beautifully summarizes the core thesis of the entire 50-point strategic guide. It ties all those technical, diplomatic, and leadership requirements together. You cannot just be one of these things. You must be a strategist, a steward, and a reformer, all operating at the exact same time within a highly compressed time frame. Which leaves us with this final critical thought. In a role tasked with safeguarding the financial backbone of global environmental action, complacency is definitely your biggest threat. So, if you were sitting in the deputy director's chair, would you constantly push to elevate UNEP's financial credibility and member state confidence, or would you just settle into the routine? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.